CPAC is the largest meeting of conservatives in America, and among the crowd this year were a number of people who had issues they wanted to raise with their peers, government, and media. American thought leaders spoke with several of them. Here's a roundup. One participant with decades of campaign experience on both sides of the political spectrum wanted to weigh in on the border crisis.
I've been in the political realm for 37 years. Started in 1980, I worked on the Kennedy campaign, of all things. I was a registered Republican. I went to Trinity College, same place as Tucker and Jesse Waters. And I was 10 years earlier than Tucker. And I was heavily involved in the political realm in politics. And a friend of mine who was a socialist, Democrat, said, "Why don't you work for Ted Kennedy?" And I thought, oh my God. And I decided, well, okay, I'll do that because I'll learn about the process. I'll go to the convention in New York City, which I ended up at the Democratic convention. Very interesting process. And then 4 years later, I worked on the Reagan campaign. I worked for Trump and I voted for Trump.
So last 2 years, what do you think? What do you the policies implemented, the changes to government, to society? I mean, there's been some pretty profound changes, actually.
A lot of presidential orders had to be enacted. One of the most contentious situations right now, of course, is the border. That's an issue which is a real passion issue for many people. I've been drawn into it because I spoke at the National Press Club to the border moms and border dads and law enforcement, clergy, and all the border people that came in.
Right.
I think if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. And you know, because of the rhetoric that led into it when Trump came down the escalator to declare his candidacy, maybe he didn't word it, he fumbled it on the wording, but I think what he was trying to say, obviously, is we're going to have some bad elements coming in. That if you've been down to the border, you studied the border, you know that the border is an emergency. And the only thing that really, it's pretty blatant and patently obvious, the only thing that is manufactured is the spin against declaring it an emergency, because the lion's share of people who are coming against the border haven't been down there and they haven't examined it, or they have an agenda to, as some people might say, and I would argue, to gin up the numbers of people coming across, ultimately to vote for the future Democratic candidate. And sadly, if that is the case, and if you're going against law enforcement, you're bringing the drugs in, you really are. I think it's quite an un-American act not to secure the border, and unfortunately, that's just the nature of it. And I'm sure your investigative reporters have determined that.
Another CPAC participant spoke against Islamic extremists in Nigeria, who he said have been killing large numbers of Christians. The challenges faced by Christians in Nigeria have received only limited media attention. He presented us some eye-opening statistics that warrant further investigation.
I come from the country of Nigeria originally, and the people in the northern Nigerian sector, there's a huge wave of, shall I use the word Christian genocide, going on right now. It's a serious matter. In 3 years, about 300 young people abducted. In 1 year, over 3,397 people killed, and not a single prosecution, not one person prosecuted.
Almost 4,000 Christians over
killed.
The last
1 year.
1 year killed in Nigeria.
Verified.
And tell me, so who is doing this?
We believe there are people who are bought into a violent form of Islamic militancy. Those are the people doing this. And in my own village where I work, they came in and they deceived the people. They presented as if they are officials of the government.
I see.
And then when all the elders were gathered, they just started shouting, "Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar," and they started shooting the elders, the leaders of the village. And
this happened in your village?
In the village where I work.
Oh, I see. And what is the name of the village? Let's get that on record.
The name of the village is Agua, Mississippi. This actually happened, sir.
And so what is the work that you're doing in this village?
What we have done is we are bringing healing. We have reached out to the orphan children. We have reached out to the widows. We run a school. in which we have about 200 children who have experienced violence, and most of them have lost one parent at least. And then we work with the widows that they have lost their husbands, and we're working beyond that particular village. But in that village, we do have a school that is ongoing, and it is transformational.
New media owners were also in the mix. John Dolan, who bought Global One News Networks in October, said his goal was to disrupt the current mainstream news media environment and take on the big social media players. He told us Global One News has 200 million weekly viewers, 3,000 journalists, and sometimes up to 1 billion hits per day.
How do you disrupt the news? So we have some patents, and some patents pending, one of which will really disrupt the news because it's an app that you can actually play if you're putting a news story out. We can fact check it in real time.
Wow.
Yeah, and then this other application we have, which is phenomenal to the digital advertisers, is, you know, they all have all these fake bots, what they call fake bots, fake clicks, right? So they're churning the account with your advertising dollars. What I do is I put it out, we have our own blockchain. So we take the digital advertisers and put it up on the blockchain so that I can't change it, you can't change it. So if you're paying for eyeballs, we deliver those eyeballs. Mm-hmm. Now I have my own video players. Mm-hmm. So with Natcom Global, we're developing, we're taking Facebook on, YouTube on directly.
So these are web and app based, basically, the players.
They're web and app based.
Yeah, fascinating.
But,
and what would you say is the common theme of your content? What is the thing that ends up resonating, or is it just whatever is popular?
No fake news. No fake news, and you know, you kind of tailor it to your geographic, so you'll see a lot of stories, and we break it out. My job is to promote America first, right? And the President Trump's agenda, the Vice President's agenda, because there's so many good things that he's done. I've known President Trump, you know, way before he was the president, probably about 38 years.
Another CPAC attendee is asking that Black Americans who are descendants from slaves be distinguished from immigrants to America. She believes there's widespread confusion around this group in contrast to people who have immigrated, she told us.
To think that a Caribbean and any other ethnic group that is of dark skin should have the same rights is very questionable for those of us who are descendants of slaves. African Americans such as myself, which they call hashtag ADOS, which is descendants of slaves, African American descendants of slaves. I'm not an immigrant. I'm not an illegal immigrant. I was brought here as commodity goods, trades, and service. And unfortunately, we see that still today with privatized prisons and Planned Parenthood put in urban communities. So we're bringing awareness of our strength.
Members of the Orthodox Jewish community were also present. One joined to tell us what inspired him to attend CPAC 2019.
I love Trump. I don't know too much about CPAC, but I see how good he is for the Jewish people and Israel. I see what he did with the Iran deal. He moved an embassy. He does so many good things for the Jewish people, even here in the United States. So I decided I have to come and support CPAC, the Conservative PAC, all these American First, everything, whatever's here, I've got to come and support and talk strongly against anti-Semitism.
And one Latina CPAC participant argued passionately for border protection and expressed her gratitude to the president for taking this challenge on.
I voted for him because he's for law and order, and I like that because my parents came here legally. My mom came from Mexico legally, so I'm very in favor of him being so strong on immigration. And there was a time, and they still talk about it, where they're like, oh, you know, Latinos, Hispanics are not for, they're not in favor of President Trump. He's a racist and a bigot, and he puts, you know, Mexicans down and all that. And being, you know, Mexican myself, they're completely wrong. He just wants people to come here legally, and that's why I came up with this organization called Latinos for Trump, to let people know, to let America know, the media know that we exist, that there are women, Latino women for President Trump, and that we're for him. I'm for him because he wants us to follow the law, and the law is to come here legally, as we all know.